James leaned back in his expensive leather chair, staring at the sketches his son, Ethan, had left on the kitchen table. They were strange drawings, full of symbols he did not recognize, lines that seemed almost alive, and notes written in a language that looked like nothing James had ever seen before. He frowned, wondering where his son could have learned such things. Ethan had always been curious and bright, but this was something different. Something beyond normal human knowledge. "Ethan, where did you get these?" James asked, his voice calm but curious. Ethan looked up from his homework, a little nervous. "I was just learning, Dad," he said. Not meeting James's eyes, James tilted his head, sensing that something was off. There was more to these sketches than Ethan was telling him. His father's instinct, sharp from years of running his business empire, told him to follow his son, to see where this secret knowledge was coming from. That evening, as the sun began to set and the city lights flickered on, James decided to quietly follow Ethan. He stayed a few steps behind, careful not to be seen, and watched as Ethan walked past the familiar streets and turned into a narrow, dimly lit alley. There, sitting cross-legged on the cold ground, was a small figure, the kind James had never seen before. She was tiny, with silvery blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the twilight. Her large violet eyes were bright and intelligent, and her hair floated as if weightless. James's breath caught in his throat. He realized instantly that this was no ordinary child. Ethan knelt in front of her, showing the sketches, and she gently pointed at them, correcting lines and symbols with delicate movements, her fingers leaving a faint shimmer in the air. He watched silently, heart racing, as the alien girl spoke in a soft, melodic language. Yet Ethan seemed to understand every word, nodding and smiling as if it was completely normal. James could not believe what he was seeing. Suddenly, the girl lifted her hand, and a small object hovered above it, spinning slowly, light flowing from it in patterns that seemed alive. James's eyes widened. He knew immediately that she possessed powers far beyond human understanding, a combination of intelligence and abilities that was both beautiful and terrifying. A sudden noise behind him made James freeze. He looked back, but the alley was empty. Yet he could feel a presence watching, waiting. He shook his head, trying to focus on the scene in front of him. Lyra, as James would later learn her name, smiled at Ethan and handed him the hovering object, teaching him how to manipulate it. Ethan's eyes sparkled with wonder and excitement, and James felt a mix of awe and fear. He wanted to step forward, but he knew that revealing himself now could frighten them both. Minutes passed, yet it felt like hours. James noticed the girl's gaze occasionally flicking toward the shadows, as if she sensed something he could not. The sense of danger was palpable, and he realized that her life might be at risk if the wrong people found her. Ethan's laugh, pure and full of joy, broke James's thoughts. He saw the happiness this alien girl brought to his son, and his heart softened. The temptation to intervene and meet her was strong, yet he restrained himself, knowing he had to understand the full situation first. The alien girl suddenly made a gesture with both hands, and a small burst of light shot up, forming a map-like projection in the air, showing constellations, alien cities, and strange symbols. James's mind raced, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. "Where did you learn this?" James whispered to himself, more to make sense of the moment than to ask aloud. Lyra turned slightly, her gaze meeting James's from the shadows, and in that instant James felt a connection, a silent understanding that she knew he was there, and yet she did not seem afraid. She nodded slightly, acknowledging him, and then returned her attention to Ethan, continuing the lesson. James felt a strange mix of emotions, fear, curiosity, awe, and a sudden surge of protectiveness. He realized that this little girl was extraordinary, and that his son's life, and perhaps the future, was now intertwined with hers. The lesson ended as Lyra gently took Ethan's hand and guided him back toward the main street. James followed at a distance, his mind racing, questions forming faster than answers. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she teaching his son? And most importantly, how could he protect her from the dangers that surely were out there? As Ethan waved goodbye and ran home, Lyra disappeared into the shadows, moving with such speed and grace that James almost doubted she had been there at all. Yet the glowing symbols lingering in the alley told him she was real. James stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, knowing that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. He made a silent promise to himself. He would find her, he would understand her, and he would protect her. And as he walked home, the city lights casting long shadows around him, James could not shake the feeling that something far greater than he could imagine was beginning. James sat in his study that night, the city lights painting golden lines across the walls. His mind refused to rest. Images of the small alien girl, Lyra, teaching his son Ethan, replayed over and over. He could not shake the feeling that she was more than just a visitor. She was extraordinary and perhaps even in danger. Ethan, oblivious to his father's worry, slept soundly in his room, dreaming of glowing symbols and floating objects. James watched him for a moment, feeling both pride and anxiety. The boy had always been curious and brave, but now that bravery had led him to someone the world might not accept, James thought about the possibilities. Questions spinning faster than answers. Who was Lyra? Where did she come from? And why did she choose to teach his son? He knew he could not simply ignore her. The instinct to protect, to take action, was too strong to resist. The next morning, James went about his routine, but his thoughts kept drifting to Lyra. He decided to check the alley again, hoping she might still be there. Waiting, he carried himself quietly, careful not to attract attention, and found the alley just as dim and empty as the night before. A soft sound made him pause, a faint giggle that was almost musical. He turned and saw a small shadow near a broken crate, and then Lyra emerged, her eyes wide, cautious yet curious. She seemed to study James as much as he studied her. "Hello?" James said softly. Careful not to scare her, Lyra tilted her head, studying him with intense eyes. "You follow?" she asked, her voice a melodic mix of tones that sounded almost like music. James nodded slowly. "I saw you teaching Ethan last night. I want to understand," he said, struggling to find the right words. "I want to help, if I can." Lyra studied him for a long moment, and James felt a small wave of tension, as if she were deciding whether to trust him. Then she nodded. "Help. Good," she said, stepping a little closer. "Danger." Near James's heart sank, realizing that her brief warning meant that someone or something was looking for her. She was not safe here, not in this city, not with humans who might exploit her powers or hurt her. He sat down on a crate, gesturing for her to do the same. "You don't have to be alone," he said. "If there is danger, I can help protect you." Lyra's eyes softened and she let out a small sigh, a sound that seemed like relief. She moved closer, touching the hovering object she carried. It shimmered briefly, as if acknowledging James's words. "I not hurt Ethan," she said, emphasizing his son's name. "Teach." "Good," James smiled faintly. "I know," he said. "I saw how much he learned from you, how happy he was, and I believe it is something good, something important." For the first time, James felt a clear purpose. He would not let fear or judgment stop him. He would protect Lyra, and through her he would protect his son's curiosity and wonder. He understood that her presence was a gift, and perhaps even a lesson for himself. Over the next few days, James began making subtle changes. He adjusted his routines to check on the alley discreetly. He noticed that Lyra appeared at different times, always teaching, always patient, always careful not to be seen. Ethan remained blissfully unaware of the danger, excitedly recounting every lesson, every new symbol he had learned. And James realized that keeping Lyra safe was not only about protecting her, but also about protecting his son's innocence and growth. One afternoon, as he observed from a distance, James saw a group of shadowy figures moving through the alley, their movements deliberate, almost predatory. His heart pounded. He realized that Lyra's warning of danger was true. The city was not safe for her. He made a decision then and there, a promise to himself and to Lyra. He would take responsibility. He would find a way to integrate her into his life safely, to hide her if necessary, and to ensure that no harm came to her or Ethan. Later that night, James sat with Ethan, discussing ordinary things, but he noticed the boy's excitement, his sketches and notes scattered around the room. He smiled inwardly, knowing that the boy's imagination was already a bridge between worlds, and that Lyra had opened that bridge. James felt a deep connection forming, not only with his son but with this small alien being. He understood that protecting Lyra was more than an act of kindness. It was an act of human courage and compassion, and he embraced it fully as he lay in bed. James could not stop thinking about the challenges ahead. He knew that danger would come, that Lyra's presence might attract attention, but he also knew that he was ready to take the risks, ready to fight for their safety, and ready to face whatever came next. In that quiet moment, a feeling of resolve washed over him, a sense of purpose that went beyond wealth or status. He realized that life had given him something far more valuable than money or power. It had given him the chance to protect, to care, and to stand for something extraordinary. And somewhere in the shadows of the city, Lyra watched silently, sensing James's promise, and for the first time, she felt that she might not have to face the dangers of this world alone. A fragile, powerful connection forming between human and alien, father and protector, student and teacher. James quickly realized that protecting Lyra would not be easy. The city, bright and bustling during the day, became a maze of shadows and hidden dangers at night. Every alley and street corner seemed filled with potential threats, and he had to be careful not to draw attention to her. Lyra, small and fragile in appearance, moved with quiet grace, but her alien nature made her stand out in subtle ways. A soft glow from her skin and dim light, faint shimmering symbols appearing in the air when she focused. These signs, though beautiful, could attract unwanted eyes. Ethan continued his lessons with her, oblivious to the risks. Sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, sketching alien symbols and practicing Lyra's instructions, James watched closely, his mind working non-stop. Calculating how to keep both of them safe, he first tried simple solutions, like keeping Lyra hidden during the day in a small, safe room in his mansion, shielding her from the outside world. But he quickly realized that isolation would frustrate her and prevent Ethan from learning. He needed a balance between safety and freedom. One evening, as James observed from a distance, he noticed something strange. A group of humans seemed to linger near the alley where Ethan met Lyra. They moved carefully, whispering among themselves, and James's instincts screamed that they were searching for someone. He rushed to Ethan, whispering, "Stay inside. Don't go near the alley today." Ethan nodded. Worried but curious, "Dad, who are they?" he asked. James shook his head, not wanting to alarm him too much. "Just people passing by," he said, masking his fear. Meanwhile, Lyra sensed the danger before James could explain. Her violet eyes flickered with concern, and the air around her shimmered slightly. A subtle warning. James saw it clearly, and he realized that she could sense threats far better than he could. The challenge became clear. Hiding Lyra was not just about keeping her out of sight. It was about predicting threats before they appeared, learning her abilities and working with her, not against her. A new kind of partnership was forming between human and alien, one built on trust, observation, and quick thinking. James began training himself to notice small details, tiny movements in the crowd, unusual shadows, unfamiliar vehicles, any hint of someone searching for Lyra. He also worked on subtle ways to disguise her when she ventured outside. Cloaks that dimmed her glow, masks that hid her alien features, small tricks to make her blend in. Despite these efforts, challenges continued. One evening, while Ethan practiced floating symbols with Lyra, a curious neighbor spotted the faint light around her hands. Their eyes widened in alarm. James had to act fast, distracting the neighbor with a casual conversation, steering them away, his heart pounding. The incident made James realize that hiding Lyra in a city was almost impossible. Every interaction carried risk. Every movement needed careful planning, and yet he could not let fear stop him. Ethan's happiness and Lyra's safety depended on him. At the same time, he noticed that Lyra's powers sometimes acted unpredictably, especially when she was tired or frustrated. A small shimmer could escape, a floating symbol might drift in the air, and James had to learn to guide her subtly, teaching her human ways of blending without restricting her nature. The biggest challenge, however, came from within the house. James had employees, assistants, and visitors who might accidentally notice something unusual. He had to create schedules, rules, and codes, explaining to Lyra in simple terms when she could move freely and when she needed to remain hidden. Despite these challenges, a bond grew between them. James admired Lyra's intelligence, patience, and courage. She learned quickly, adapting to his house rules while still teaching Ethan in ways that amazed him. And in turn, Lyra began to trust James completely, letting him guide her in matters of safety. One night, as James patrolled the perimeter of his home, he realized how much he had changed, once focused solely on business and wealth. He now measured success by the safety of an alien girl and the joy of his son. His priorities shifted, and he understood the meaning of real responsibility. The challenges were far from over, though. James could feel eyes watching from afar, shadows that moved differently, whispers in the night that hinted at people, or perhaps other beings searching for Lyra. The hidden dangers were multiplying. and the city, though familiar, now felt alien and dangerous. Yet James was determined he would adapt, learn, and fight for her, for Ethan, and for the bond that had grown between them. He knew that protecting Lyra was not just about hiding her from the world. It was about preparing them all for what was coming, a larger challenge that neither human nor alien could face alone. And as he looked at Lyra, practicing with Ethan under the soft glow of the living room light, James made another silent promise, stronger than ever, no matter the danger. No matter the challenge, he would keep them safe. James had begun to feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Protecting Lyra was no longer just about secrecy or clever hiding. It was about survival. The city that once felt safe now seemed full of shadows and whispers. Every stranger a potential threat. One evening, as Ethan and Lyra practiced floating symbols in the alley behind James's mansion, a faint rustle from the nearby trash bins caught James's attention. He froze, his instincts sharp, his hand moving subtly toward the small device he kept for emergencies. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall, moving with precision, a human-like silhouette but with a certain unnatural grace. Eyes hidden behind dark lenses, James's heart pounded. He realized immediately that this was no ordinary person. Someone was searching for Lyra and had found a clue. Lyra froze, her small body tense, sensing the danger, her violet eyes locking onto the figure. James stepped forward instinctively, placing himself slightly in front of Ethan, his protective instincts blazing. "Who are you?" James demanded, his voice steady but low. The figure tilted its head slightly, speaking in a calm, measured tone. "I'm just looking for someone." The words were simple, but the underlying threat was clear. James could feel it in the way the figure moved. Deliberate, confident, dangerous. Ethan clutched Lyra's hand, his small fingers trembling. Yet he did not run, he trusted James. And he trusted Lyra. James's mind raced. He knew he had to act quickly to protect both of them. Lyra's small hand moved to the hovering object she always carried, a faint glow surrounding it. James noticed the shimmer and understood that she was preparing to defend herself. Yet he knew he could not let a confrontation happen in public. Too many eyes, too many dangers. "I don't want trouble," James said firmly. "Leave now, and no one will get hurt." His voice carried authority, yet there was tension beneath it. He could feel the figure studying him, weighing his words, testing his resolve. The figure took a slow step forward, a shadow moving closer, and James realized that reasoning might not be enough. He glanced at Lyra, signaling her silently to prepare to hide, and she nodded subtly, understanding the unspoken command. In a sudden burst of movement, the figure lunged toward the glowing object, and Lyra's reflexes were faster. A wave of light shot from her hand, forming a protective shield around her and Ethan. James felt a heat in the air as the energy pulsed, a visible warning to anyone who dared approach. The figure halted, hands raised slightly, then stepped back, seemingly impressed or cautious. James realized that whoever this was, they had experience dealing with beings like Lyra. This was not a random threat. This was someone trained, someone dangerous. "Why are you here?" James demanded again, his voice firm. The tension in the alley thick, Ethan hiding behind him, his small body shaking but eyes wide with awe at Lyra's power. The figure spoke again, calm, almost too calm. "I'm looking for her, the girl who does not belong here." The words sent a chill down James's spine. He understood immediately. Lyra was not safe in the city. There were others who wanted her, and their intentions were far from kind. Lyra stepped forward slightly, her small frame glowing faintly, her voice soft but firm. "I only teach," she said, her words almost musical, yet carrying strength. The figure paused, studying her, and James saw a flicker of respect, or perhaps calculation, in their stance. James knew he had to act. He grabbed Ethan's hand, signaling Lyra to follow, moving them toward a side alley that led back to the mansion. A safer place. The figure did not follow immediately, lingering in the shadows, watching, waiting, a predator assessing prey. Back inside the mansion, James locked the doors, secured the windows, and breathed a sigh of relief. Ethan collapsed onto the sofa, exhausted but exhilarated. Lyra hovered beside him, glowing softly, her eyes still scanning the room, alert for any signs of danger. James realized then that the city was not a safe place for her. Not even for a moment. The figure outside was only the beginning. There were more, and they would not stop searching. The threat was real, immediate, and growing. He looked at Lyra, then at Ethan, and made a silent vow, stronger than ever. He would protect them both, no matter the cost, no matter the danger. The life of the alien girl, the curiosity and innocence of his son, and the bond that had formed between them were now his responsibility. And as the night stretched on, James understood that their lives had changed forever. Ordinary days of wealth and comfort were gone, replaced by hidden dangers, secret lessons, and a new purpose that was both frightening and exhilarating. Outside the mansion in the silent city streets, the shadowy figure lingered, a reminder that the threats were only beginning, and that James, Ethan, and Lyra were now players in a game much larger than themselves. The night had grown darker, the city streets almost empty, yet James felt the weight of every shadow, every sound amplified in his mind. He could feel the presence of danger nearby, waiting, patient, and calculating. Ethan and Lyra sat quietly in the mansion's study, practicing their floating symbols, trying to continue the lesson despite the tension in the air. Lyra's small hands glowed faintly, illuminating the room in soft waves of violet light, and Ethan's eyes sparkled with excitement and curiosity. Unaware of the immediate danger, James had been monitoring the perimeter, every window, every door, every alley surrounding the mansion. When he noticed movement, subtle at first, then deliberate, figures approaching from multiple directions, shadows slipping between buildings, silent but filled with purpose. "They're coming," James whispered to himself. His voice steady but urgent, he turned to Ethan, kneeling down to his son's level. "Stay inside, stay with Lyra, and do exactly what I say, okay?" Ethan nodded, eyes wide, gripping Lyra's hand tightly. Lyra's glow pulsed faster, her senses warning her of approaching danger. James knew they had little time. He grabbed a small, concealed device from his desk, a compact shield generator he had purchased after last week's incident. Activating it quickly, a soft hum filled the room, creating a protective barrier around the study. The front doors rattled as the intruders tried to force entry. James moved swiftly, intercepting the first shadow, blocking the door with his body, his heart pounding. Adrenaline rushing through him, he could not allow them to reach Ethan or Lyra. Lyra stepped forward, small but brave, her fingers raised, energy flowing into sharp, controlled bursts, creating flashes of light that forced the intruders to pause. They were not prepared for her power, yet James could see determination in their movements. They would not give up easily. James grabbed Ethan, signaling Lyra to follow, and they moved toward a hidden passage he had prepared in advance, a secret exit that led to a safe room in the mansion's basement. The intruders pursued, breaking through minor barriers, but James's quick thinking allowed them to stay ahead. Once inside the safe room, James activated more defenses, reinforced doors locking automatically, sensors detecting any attempt to breach. Ethan clung to him, eyes wide with fear and awe, while Lyra hovered beside them, her glow calming yet alert. James's mind raced, planning the next move. He realized that staying inside indefinitely would not work. The intruders were skilled, patient, and persistent. They needed to take action, confront the threat, and drive them away permanently. With a deep breath, James opened a secure window slightly, enough for Lyra to use her abilities without being fully exposed. "Lyra, are you ready?" he asked. She nodded, energy flowing through her small hands, the violet light expanding, forming a protective dome outside the mansion. The intruders paused, sensing the energy, their confidence faltering for the first time. James watched closely as Lyra concentrated, moving objects in the alley, creating illusions and barriers, confusing them, while subtle bursts of light forced them to retreat step by step. James took the opportunity to step outside, using his height and strength to intercept any intruder trying to flank Lyra. He moved with precision, blocking, pushing, and guiding, relying on instinct more than training. Yet his determination made him formidable. One of the intruders tried to rush Lyra, and James intercepted just in time, tackling the figure to the ground. Feeling the adrenaline and fear course through him, Lyra's light enveloped the intruder and a small pulse knocked him off balance. James realized then that human courage and alien power combined were unstoppable. The rest of the group, seeing their ally falter and facing Lyra's energy dome, finally retreated, melting back into the shadows of the city. James did not lower his guard until he was sure they were gone. The night returned to quiet, the danger temporarily averted. Ethan, wide-eyed, hugged James tightly. "Dad, you saved us," he whispered, relief and awe in his voice. Lyra hovered nearby, small smile on her glowing face. "Safe, now," she said softly, her voice melodic yet firm, the lesson of trust, courage, and unity evident in her words. James looked at them both, his heart swelling, realizing that this was more than protection. It was about forming a bond, a partnership, and understanding that true strength comes from care, courage, and trust. Human or alien, it did not matter. That night, as they settled back in the safe room, James reflected on what had happened. He understood that the challenges were only beginning, that the world outside could never be completely safe for Lyra. Yet he also knew that he would never turn away, never abandon her. He looked at Ethan, smiling despite the fear, and then at Lyra, glowing faintly. "We are a team now," he said quietly but firmly, "and nothing will break us." And somewhere beyond the city lights, in the silent shadows, James could feel the lingering threat, the sense that others would come, testing them, challenging them. But he no longer felt fear alone. He felt purpose, and a powerful determination to stand against any danger for the ones he loved. The morning after the bold rescue, James sat quietly in the mansion's study, staring out at the city skyline, the sun casting golden streaks across the buildings. His mind was heavy with questions, yet his heart felt a strange calm. He had faced danger and survived, but now a new challenge awaited, understanding Lyra and her world. Ethan bounced into the room, clutching his sketches, excitement shining in his eyes. "Dad, Lyra taught me a new symbol last night. It's amazing," he exclaimed, oblivious to the tension lingering from the previous night. James smiled faintly, ruffling Ethan's hair. "That's wonderful, son, but today we need to talk to Lyra. Understand her better," he said, motioning for Ethan to follow. Lyra sat quietly on the floor, hovering slightly, her violet eyes watching James with curiosity and trust. James took a deep breath, deciding it was time to ask the questions that had been building in his mind.
"Lyra," James began gently, "I need to understand."
"Why are you here? Why are you teaching Ethan? And why are others searching for you?" Lyra paused, her small hands folded in her lap, a faint glow surrounding her. Then she spoke softly, her melodic voice carrying the weight of her story. "I, from another world, my people, in danger, hiding, learn human ways, teach good things, not hurt." James listened intently, realizing that she was not just a child but a survivor, a being from a world he could barely imagine, her intelligence and powers far beyond human comprehension, and yet she had chosen trust and kindness over fear. Lyra continued, showing him faint holographic images from her small device, glowing scenes of alien cities, landscapes of strange colors, beings with different shapes and lights on their skin. "My home, attacked, many lost, I hide. Teach humans hope," she explained, her large violet eyes filled with sadness and resolve. James felt a pang of emotion, understanding her loss, her courage, and the reason she was so cautious yet kind. He reached out, careful not to frighten her. "I understand, Lyra, and I promise to protect you not just from others, but from anything that could harm you or Ethan." Ethan, sitting beside her, held her tiny hand. "We are friends, right?" he asked softly, his innocence and sincerity shining through. Lyra nodded, her glow brightening slightly. "Friends. Yes, teach, learn, safe," she said. The connection between human and alien, father and daughter, teacher and student, growing stronger in that moment. James realized that the lesson was not just for Ethan, but for himself, understanding that compassion and courage were more important than wealth or status, that protecting those who could not protect themselves was a true measure of humanity. He asked Lyra about her powers, the hovering objects, the symbols, the energy, and she explained in simple ways. "Learned from home, energy flow, think, move, control." James nodded slowly, realizing the potential for both wonder and danger, but trusting in her judgment and care. Lyra also revealed why she had chosen Ethan. "You, curious, kind, learn fast, help human understand good," she said, smiling faintly, and James felt pride mixed with awe. His son was part of something extraordinary, learning lessons that crossed worlds, cultures, and species. As the day passed, James arranged a small schedule, balancing Ethan's learning and Lyra's need for safety, showing her the mansion's rooms, the hidden passageways, the secret places where she could practice safely. And Lyra adapted quickly, demonstrating intelligence and trust. By evening, James sat with her alone, reflecting on the events. He asked the question that had been in his heart since the night he first saw her teaching Ethan. "Lyra, can humans and aliens really understand each other? Can we protect and help each other?" Lyra's eyes glowed softly. "Yes. Must trust, must care, Together strong, she said, her words simple but powerful, conveying the essence of hope, cooperation, and courage. James felt a deep understanding settle within him. The bond was no longer just protection. It was partnership, learning, and growth, the kind that transcended worlds, species, and fear. He realized that humanity's true strength lay not in weapons or wealth, but in compassion, courage, and the ability to stand for what is right. He looked at Ethan, who was sketching symbols beside Lyra, and felt gratitude. This small alien girl had not only taught his son incredible knowledge, she had also taught him lessons he would carry forever. Humility, courage, and the power of trust. As night fell, the mansion quiet except for the soft glow of Lyra's hands. James made another silent vow. He would protect them both, understand them, and help them thrive no matter what threats came next. The revelation of Lyra's past and the understanding of her mission had given him purpose beyond anything he had imagined. And somewhere beyond the city, James could feel that the challenges ahead were still waiting. The world outside would test their courage, their bonds, and their humanity, but now he was ready, armed not with weapons or money, but with trust, understanding, and an unshakable resolve to stand with Lyra and Ethan. The morning sun spilled golden light across the mansion. Warming the quiet rooms, James sat at the kitchen table, watching Ethan and Lyra laugh softly as they shared their morning sketches. The symbols dancing in the air as Lyra guided Ethan's tiny hands. James felt a swell of pride and a deep sense of purpose. The events of the past days, the lessons, the threats, the bold rescue, and the revelations had changed his life forever. What had started as curiosity had blossomed into something extraordinary, a bond that went beyond human understanding. Lyra's small hands hovered over a glowing symbol, tracing intricate lines with perfect precision. Ethan followed, trying to mimic her movements. And James could see the joy and wonder in his son's eyes, a happiness that had been missing before. James walked over quietly, kneeling beside them. "You both make a great team," he said softly, earning shy smiles from Ethan and Lyra. The room seemed brighter, the air lighter, the dangers of the city momentarily forgotten. But James knew they could not let their guard down completely. The shadow of the intruders and other unknown threats still lingered. Yet he also realized that fear would not guide them. Courage and trust would, and together they could face anything. He had made arrangements to keep Lyra safe, hidden from those who might exploit her, yet free enough to teach and grow with Ethan, creating spaces where she could practice her abilities without drawing attention, and safe rooms with protections that he had designed personally. Over the next few days, James noticed something remarkable. Lyra's presence began to transform the mansion. Subtle changes in the air, a faint energy that seemed to lift spirits. Even small neglected things began to flourish. Plants grew faster, the home felt warmer, alive with quiet magic. Ethan laughed as he noticed it, pointing to a floating symbol shimmering above a potted plant. "Look, Dad, Lyra made it grow," he exclaimed. James smiled, realizing that her abilities, though alien, were gentle and life-affirming, a reflection of her nature. James reflected on the meaning of family, realizing that it was not just blood or species that mattered, but trust, care, and shared experiences. He looked at Ethan and Lyra, two beings from different worlds, learning and protecting each other, and understood that this was his new family. Lyra, sensing James's thoughts, reached out her small hand, touching his gently. A soft glow spreading briefly, and he felt the connection, the unspoken promise between human and alien, protector and protected, teacher and friend. They spent the day together, exploring new symbols, practicing hovering objects and laughing when mistakes caused sparks or floating sketches to spin wildly. The house echoed with joy, a contrast to the fear and danger of previous nights. In the evening, James decided to introduce a new routine, combining learning, safety, and family time. "We will have lessons and practice, but also time together," he said. "We are stronger together, and that is our real power." Ethan nodded eagerly. Lyra's glow pulsed softly in agreement. As night fell, the mansion quiet except for the soft hum of Lyra's energy. James looked out the window at the city beyond, aware that challenges would come again, yet he no longer felt helpless or afraid. He had learned that courage and compassion could overcome fear. The bond between human and alien had formed a shield stronger than any barrier. James realized that protecting Lyra and Ethan was not just a duty. It was a choice, a conscious act of love and responsibility, something far more valuable than wealth or power. Lyra hovered close, her small eyes shining with trust. Ethan asleep beside her, clutching one of her glowing symbols, and James felt a sense of peace he had never known. The chaos of the outside world could not touch the connection they shared. He made a silent vow as he looked at them. No matter what came next, they would face it together, as a family, human and alien united, learning, teaching, and protecting each other. A new chapter had begun, filled with hope, courage, and possibility. Somewhere in the city, shadows lingered, distant and observing. But James no longer felt fear, only readiness, because he knew that the greatest strength lay not in hiding or running, but in standing together, protecting what mattered, and embracing the extraordinary. And as the night deepened, the mansion glowed softly, a beacon of life, learning, and compassion. Ethan dreaming of symbols and floating lights, Lyra resting nearby, small but brave, and James watching over them. A wealthy man who had found something far more valuable than anything money could buy. A family, trust, and hope. The adventure was far from over. But for the first time, James knew that together, they could face anything in the city full of unknown dangers, felt a little smaller, a little safer, and filled with endless possibility for what this unique, human-alien family could achieve together.